Innovative Games channel. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe for quality chess content. We upload daily videos of amazing chess, tricks, traps, openings, and more. Thank you, everyone. Hello, friends, and welcome to Innovative Games channel, and welcome to the Amazing King Walk done by Nigel Short. And today we are going to see a game played between Nigel Short and Jan Timman in a chess tournament. And I'm not going to really take the name of the tournament because this game only says that, due to this game only I will just not take the name of the tournament, because this game is so amazing that people just loved it and even I liked it, so I thought of sharing it with you all. And yes, again, the specialty of this game is that, in the middle game, the black player lost the game because the white player checkmated him. Not really checkmated, but the black player just resigned the game. And yes, when the black player resigned, because it was going to be a mate in 3, and the mate in 3 was going to be because of one king and one queen. And yes, I'm not joking. In the game there were 5 to 6 pieces on the board, 8 pawns were there on the board, and two or two to 1 to 2 pawns were exchanged, and there were 6 to 7 pawns on the board, 2 rooks, 1 knight, 1 bishop, and the game was ended by a checkmate with a queen and a king. This is so amazing. Means in the middle game, when you have all of the pieces on the board, how can you just bring your king ahead and do a checkmate? But this is the specialty of this game. And yes, I will just not waste too much time in talking about the moves. I'm just going to show you the game now. Okay, so Nigel Short was playing with the white pieces, and with the black pieces playing Jan Timman, who is a Dutch chess player. And yes, we start with the moves pawn to e4. We have knight to the f6 square. So knight to f6 square is the Alekhines defense developed by Alexander Alekhine. And the main point of this defense is that when you play a pawn to the e5 square, which was played in the game, the main point is that you have to keep white engaged in the job of attacking the knight, and at the end it turns out that this knight is not going to be trapped in the center. And yes, you will just mess up all of your pawn structure, and the game is not going to go good for you. But this was not played in the game. After e5, we have the move pawn to e5, and yes, knight to d5 was also played, because you just can't go for any other moves. You can go for knight to e4, but it's not a good move because it allows pawn to d3, and yes, you are not really in a good position, and your knight could also get trapped. So we have knight to the d4 square. Now Nigel Short plays his knight to. So Jan Timman has played his knight to the d5 square. We have pawn to first d4, and then pawn to d6 by Jan Timman. And now, as I had told you, and I didn't tell you actually, that the main point of the Alekhines defense is that you will give some time to the white player to build up his strong center and develop his pieces, but at the end you will strike upon the center, and when your opponent would be engaged in defending his central pawns, at the same time you will launch an attack from the F, G, and from the H files, and you can easily checkmate or do a checkmate on the board. So this is the main point, but yes, it does take very long time, but yes, so it's a nice idea. And yes, this idea is also used by many of the chess openings. We have knight to f3, developing the knight and also protecting the e5 pawn. And friends, again, I had told you as before, there is a theme in chess which is called overprotection. And now white is overprotecting the e5 and the d5 pawn. So the d5 pawn is being overprotected due to, when these pawns will get exchanged, this d file is going to get fully open, and then you need extra support on your central squares and the central pawns, because maybe your central pawns could make you win the game. and the e5 pawn is getting protected because now when the d6 pawn will capture your e5 pawn, you really don't want to capture with the d4 pawn and let it out in the open. So this is the main point behind playing knight to f3. And so yes, it's like a good move. And now we have pawn to g6, planning to fianchetto to the bishop from this long diagonal. We have bishop to the c4 square, attacking on the knight. Now the knight moves to the b6 square. We have bishop to b3, moving the bishop behind, and now moving the bishop on the d3 square would not be good because like the bishop is doing nothing over here. And when you move your bishop to the b3 square instead, it is covering the f7 square and this long diagonal. It can also indirectly cover the g8 square. So now you have bishop to g7 as per the plan. Queen to e2 was played in the game. Knight to c6, just some normal development by Timman. Now both the players choose to castle. We have pawn to h3, just blocking out some of the nasty pins from the g4 square. We have now pawn to the a5 square by Timman. Pawn to a4, blocking out this pawn to a4 move. Now we have d takes on e5, and now you have to make a choice that you capture with your which piece. If you capture with the knight, then you have knight takes on d4. Of course you will need to capture with the pawn, and then black can play pawn to e6 and the position will remain like closed. And yes, you just can't capture with the queen or else you know that what will happen. But in the game, d takes on e5 was played, and Nigel chooses to play d takes on e5 because he wanted to open this long d file and make some type of attacks on it. We have knight to d4, knight takes on d4 and queen takes on d4. Now the queen is centralized, and now you just need to protect the e5 pawn. So rook to e1, forced move, and you just can't play your pawn to the f4 square because it's like a long pin. So after rook to e1, we have pawn to e6 square, blocking off pawn to e6 move made by the white player. Now like you have really choices to make in this position again, and really I ask you to pause the video in this position and like in all of the positions where I say that now you have a choice to make. So now you have a choice to make that like what you play in this position. So everyone please pause the video over here and think about the move which you can possibly play. So yes friends, I hope that you have got the move which is knight to d2. Yes, it's like not the best move suggested by the engines, but yes, you could go for other moves also, but not for bishop to e3 because you just simply lose your pawn. So there are like other moves also which you can play. You can consider pawn to c3 attacking on the queen, then the queen will go to the h4 square and the game will continue on. And like instead of c3 you can also play knight to c3, and like there are now lots of options. But this knight to d2 move was a very special move because now the knight can come on the f3 square and protect the e5 pawn and as well as jump onto the g5 square. So a good move by Nigel. Now now we have knight to the d5 square, centralizing the knight. We have knight to f3 attacking on the queen. We have queen to the c5 square, and now queen to the e4 square. Now queen to b4 was played in the game to exchange of the queens, and now friends, you don't want to exchange the queens. I am giving you a hint, and now again you have a choice to make that why that you exchange the queens. And if you don't want to exchange the queens, then what move do you make? Okay, so I hope that we have found the move bishop to c4 as it's the best move in the position. But if you have thought of some moves like knight to d4, we will look one by one. So knight to d4 turns out that not a good move because after c5 your knight is under attack. You will play pawn to c3 attacking the queen, then knight takes on c3, bishop b takes on c3. You can play queen takes on c3, and you just really don't want to play in this position. Your rook on the a1 square is under attack, your knight is under attack, your central pawns are not well defended, the d file will be in some vulnerable attacks, and yes, like it's just a very messy position. So instead of bishop to c4, after queen to b4, even pawn to c4 was possible, but that will simply hang up your b3 bishop and you will lose the game. So bishop to c4 is the best move, and it also plans for pawn to b3, and everything will be like just well protected. And yes, everything will be well protected, and now you are just free to attack from this long diagonal and from the g file or from the h file, from whichever file you want. So now in the game, knight to b6 was played, attacking on the bishop, and now we have the move pawn to b3. And now knight takes on c4 was played. Of course, you will not capture with the queen now, or else like for the point for which you played your bishop to c4, and now the point is lost, and now after queen takes, the pawn structure would all be messed up. And yes, like this is not good a pawn structure, and yes, you will eventually lose the game due to like inactive pieces and all of that stuff. So b takes on c4 was played, and you might be wondering that like why to mess up your pawn structure. And friends, it is because now you have messed your pawn structure, but you have got the b file in return, and also you don't have to focus on the queen side, you have to focus on the king side, and mainly on the attack which you are going to plan. So yes, you just don't have the time to look after your pawn structure and everything. So we have rook to the e8 square, and I really didn't understand the rook to e8 square move. I personally thought that like rook to e8 was not the best move. You could possibly go for rook to d8 and claim this d file, but this was not played in the game. Rook to e8 was played. We have rook to d1, claiming the unclaimed d file. Now we have queen to c5, and now like what's the main plan of playing queen to c5? It is just doing nothing, and that's the exact point. The queen was doing nothing on the b4 square, and now it is at least pinning the f2 pawn, and the main point is that the queen is at least doing something on the c5 square than staying simply on the b4 square. So anyways, we have queen to h4, planning to keep the queen on the h file and also to exchange off the g7 bishop in order to get an easy position. We have pawn to b6, planning to launch the bishop from this b7 square. We have bishop to e3, attacking on the queen. Queen returns to the c6 square, and friends, queen to c6 was an inaccuracy. Instead, queen to f8 was the best move, as it also blocks off the h6 square, and yes, it also blocks off all of the attacking ideas for black. Sorry, not for black, but for white. But you know, like Nigel Short had this amazing move bishop to h6, but he had preserved it for the next move, and queen to c6 was played. And now like Jan Timman was like thinking like Mikhail Tal, or like a chess engine, because he understood that now he wants to bring his bishop to the b7 square. It will connect both of his rooks, and if you see, there is a mate on the g2 square, and now if the knight will move, then it will be a mate very easily. So now the knight will be indirectly pinned, or else if it moves, then it will be a checkmate. So we can just type of capture white's piece in the middle game, not directly but indirectly we can capture a piece. So yes, a nice thinking and nice virtual idea by Jan Timman, but it turned out that it didn't work, like really didn't work. So bishop to h6 was played, and again, if you just exchange off everything, then after knight to g5 you are just going to get checkmated. For example, if you play bishop to b7 planning to go for a checkmate, we have rook to the d4 square planning to play rook to h4, and it will be a mate in some of the next moves. And yes, you really don't want to lose such an amazing game against Nigel Short, and that's why bishop to h8 was played. So yes, nice move, because you really don't want to exchange off your bishops. So the bishop into the h8 square, we have rook to d8, bishop to b7, and now rook a to d1. And now you have brought your rook a to the d1 square, because friends, you just want your rooks on the d1 on the d file. Everything will be just finely connected, and now you just can't exchange of the rooks, because if you just exchange of them, then you're going to get mated in only 5 moves. And yes, so after rook a to d1, the move which was played in the game was bishop to g7, the only move which could save black from being mated. And it was really the best move, because like you just want to protect the f8 square and also the f7 square, because now there is also threat of rook on the d1 square to the d7 square, and your f7 pawn will be in a great danger. So bishop to g7 is like a very brilliant move played by Timman. Rook on the 8th file was played onto the d7 square. We have rook to f8, again the only move which is like supporting black from not losing the game, and it is also protecting the f7 square. And friends, now if you look, Nigel's shot is just like forcing Timman to play the moves which you want. And this is an ideal type of idea which we should follow in every game, that your opponent must play the move which you want. Like indirectly you will tell your opponent that like yes, play this move, or else you are going to get checkmated, and at the end you just simply defeat your opponent. So what amazing it would be to play a game like this, and it was actually played in like 30 to 40 years before. So like it's like just a wonder of nature and time. Your bishop takes on g7, king takes on g7, exchanging of the protective bishop. Now rook on the first rank was played onto the d4 square. Now the plan is to bring rook onto the f4 square, then the queen to the f6 square, and then pressurize on the f7 pawn. Like what a deep thinking by Nigel shot. Now we have rook a to e8. Now you just can't play anything. Like you have to just support everything, and the rook was not in the game. It has been brought into the game, and now you just can hope for something good. Queen to f6 check was played. Now slowly Nigel's shot will bring all of his pieces towards the black king, and simply it will wind it, and simply Nigel's shot will just wind up the game by simply checkmating the black player. So now you just can't go for king to h6 because of rook to h4 mate. You can really go to the g8 square, and you just can't go to the h8 square because it's a check. So after king to g8, we have pawn to h4, and now pawn to h4 does a very deep thing. And now pawn to h4 move is a very deep move, and this move is supporting a very series of moves which you will understand later. So now the threat is to play pawn to h5 and expose this g file, and it will be a mate in 1. So you are kind of forced to play pawn to h5. And now friends, we have the series of moves for which this game is famous. We have the king walk, and I request all of you to pause the video over here, and also be sure to book an ambulance, because after seeing this you can just really fall unconscious on the floor. Because kudos if you have found the move king to h2. What a brilliant move, like what an amazing move, because now you have understood that you need one piece on the h6 square to checkmate on the g7 square. So now the king is on the h2 square. Now Nigel shot understood that the king can easily come onto the h6 square and do a checkmate. But such a deep thinking by Nigel shot that like nobody could also imagine that in the middle game you will bring your king onto the h2 square, and now the king is like a one-man army coming into all of the black's enemy camp and just checkmating it in all of the middle game. Like such an amazing move played by Nigel shot. And if you are new to chess and you are watching this video, then you will not understand the magic of this move and the magic of chess. So sorry for that. And anyways, we will continue on to the game. Rook to c8 was played, and you really don't have any moves to play. King to g3, rook a to c8, rook c to e8, and you really don't have any moves. The and the engine is just going completely wild, and the first engine was showing the game is a draw. Now it is showing clearly winning for white, and at first it was showing clearly winning for black. Not winning for black, I was just kidding, but yes. Now you just don't have like any moves to play in this position, because now black can just only move his rooks to the c8 or to any other square, and you just can't play anything. Rook to c8 was again played, and after king to g5, Timman simply resigned the game because he understood that because he understood that the king cannot be stopped from coming on the h6 square, and it's going to be a checkmate in 5 moves. After king to h7, we can play queen takes on g6 with a check. When the king will come to the h8 square, we play queen to h6, king to g8, king to f6. It's a mate in 1. You can move your rook, and it's an amazing checkmate. And in the middle game you have 1 2 3 4 pieces on the board, and both the sides have 4 pieces, so 8 pieces, and there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 and 13 pawns on the board, friends. Like, what an amazing game played. Again, I just can't tell you the beauty of this game. So yes, we have seen the amazing king walk, and now you can do amazing thing. You can do one more amazing thing in the 21st century, which is you can subscribe to the channel with notifications on, so that all of your games can end like this, and you can get a Guinness Book of World Record for winning a chess game like this. And with saying this, I would like to end the video over here. So everyone, thanks for watching, and we'll meet in the next video very soon. Next video is coming up very soon again, and I was able to record this video just the day after when I uploaded this video, so I'm really lucky for that. And yes, we will be meeting in the next video very soon. So till then, stay tuned and have a great day. Innovative Games channel. Subscribe now if you want to all of your games to be end like this one. Thank you. I hope that you all have enjoyed the video. We will meet soon in the next video. Till then, stay tuned and have a great day. And next video is coming out very soon. Thank you everyone.